Hey there, it's Antho, Mr. Hyperlocal with Hamlet, your real estate resource. I'm so pleased to be with you in this video as we discuss the geography of Southern California and Orange County in particular. So, we're zoomed out all this way because before we can get hyperlocal, we got to start out at the global perspective. Now, because the Earth is rotating, and because down here at the equator, it's further bulged out, right? This water, as it spins, has to travel at a greater speed because it goes at a farther distance than the water that's up here at the north. And that creates the Coriolis effect, okay, which here's the key thing to keep in mind is what drives the ocean currents across the globe. And so in the northern hemisphere, what happens is there is a clockwise current of water that goes like this. And so, if we live down here in California, or any spot in California, but Southern California, really anywhere on the west coast of North America in the United States, we are going to be getting water that's coming down from Alaska. And obviously, that water is pretty cold because it's coming from Alaska. Not to say that it's always cold here, but it's just more chilly relative to the Atlantic Ocean, where that cold water is going to be coming down into Europe. But if you were to live on the east coast of the United States, we see the same thing is in effect here, but the water that's coming up is warm water from the equator. So if you lived in a place like Florida, your water is going to be warmer in the ocean relative to the Pacific over here in the northern hemisphere. So something to keep in mind. Now, as we zoom in, we'll discuss the next part. Here is Southern California. And from this perspective, we see a couple things of note. Big thing here that I want to discuss are these mountain ranges. We see there's a good mountain range right there. Here's a big one happening. And there's a little offshoot mountain range here as well. So discussing this top one first, these ranges, it's a series of ranges. This is known as the transverse ranges. It's called transverse because it's unique in California. It's the only set of mountain ranges where they go from west to east. And that happened, originally these was a north-south mountain range as well, but over time, because of the plate tectonics and some complex geology, they turned and now they've rotated to become a west-east range. And looking at this mountain range here, we have this is more classic. It's going from north to south. This is known as the peninsular ranges. And we call it the peninsular ranges because if we were to zoom out here, what we would see is these mountains come all the way down, and it's a high point that stays out of the water and creates the Baja California Peninsula. So it travels all the way down there. Pretty interesting. So coming back in, we'll take a look down here at the south. We see San Diego has been built in this low-lying area to the west of the mountains. And if we come up and look here, we see Santa Barbara has been built here in the low-lying areas with the mountains above them. Ventura and Oxnard, same story. And we're really going to talk here first about this part. Now, this is the Los Angeles Basin. Just like this. And we see it's blocked off. This is a little offshoot of the mountains. It's called the Santa Ana Mountains. They turn into the Chino Hills here, which turn into the San Puente Hills, which bleed into the San Rafael Hills. So this is a geographically distinct area here from what's happening over here in West Covina and Pasadena, which is the San Gabriel Valley. And over here we have the San Bernardino Valley. It's different spaces. So a long, long time ago, this whole area of the Los Angeles Basin was underwater. And the beach was not over here where it is today. The beach, all those waves would have been crashing up against these mountains and hills here. And over time, the waters receded and the ocean level went down. And as it did, then all of a sudden, some land came available, and this was the new spot where the waves broke. And then the waves would break here, and et cetera, until we get to our present day beaches where the waves break over here. Now, as that happens, right, when the waves, when they break, they churn up the land, they drag out the sand, and as that all happened, that process over a long, long period of time, it created a flat zone in this space. So most of this area is very flat, with just a couple notable exceptions. The biggest exception being the Palos Verdes Peninsula here, which at one point, as you can see, was an island when all this was underwater. So, as we saw, we can see here that there's a border happening here between, and it kind of it defines two different spaces here in the Los Angeles Basin. And so if we zoom in on that border, we see we have the Chino Hills up here, which form one part of the border. We got the Santa Ana Mountains here. We got the ocean. And on this side, this is actually the San Gabriel River that goes up. But the border of Orange County kind of roughly follows this part, which is known as Coyote Creek. You see it right there. And if we were to follow Coyote Creek up, we see that's sort of the unofficial border right up until we get up to La Habra, where it kind of juts north, and Coyote Creek continues at more of a northeast heading. So this whole area here, we'll draw it real quick, kind of this space. This is the space that we typically refer to as North Orange County, and it is part of the Los Angeles Basin. And because its geography is very similar here to South Los Angeles over here, the two regions have a lot in common. They were sort of developed around the same time. First, people were living more in here, but they started to build homes and infrastructure here. And they did so, of course, because it's very flat in this area. It was close to the ocean, where there was all sorts of shipping happening and commerce and transit. And because it's flat, it's easy to build homes, it's easy to build infrastructure. And so if you live up in this area of Orange County, North Orange County, there's much different architectural styles because the homes are older. There are neighborhoods in this area, in places like Orange or Fullerton, that could be 100 years old or older. And it's got a very rich history in this spot. This low-lying area was terrific from an agricultural perspective. And before there were orange orchards, there was the vineyards. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the history video. But this whole area here, it's got a very rich history. And it is, in a sense, very distinct culturally from South Orange County. So we'll discuss now, come down and take another look at this other part of Orange County here. Now, Huntington Beach and then up here is Seal Beach. They're kind of doing their own thing. But if we were to look at this region, trying to get a good happy medium, but we can't really find the happy medium. That's okay. This space here is what we refer to as South Orange County. And we see there's a couple things of note. So these are the Santa Ana Mountains. And right here, these are the San Joaquin Hills. And these San Joaquin Hills, it's just a hilly area. It contains parts of Newport Beach, Laguna Niguel, Dana Point, Aliso Viejo, parts of Laguna Hills. This is the San Joaquin Hills. It's a hilly area. And over here, this whole space is the foothills. It's kind of like that. Really, this whole area here is the foothills of the Santa Ana Mountains. So because it was more hilly and further away from the ports and everything that was happening in Los Angeles, This area wasn't developed until later, kind of the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and on into the 90s and 2000s with Aliso Viejo. And, it's harder to build homes and the infrastructure and such. So very different geographically and in some senses culturally as well. So if you were to live here in Santa Ana, Tustin kind of area, you would look out here on the Santa Ana Mountains and kind of also sort of looking down on the San Joaquin or out on the San Joaquin Hills, and you would feel like you're living in a valley, and we refer to this area as the Santa Ana Valley. If you lived in this area, you'd be looking out also on the Santa Ana Mountains and the San Joaquin Hills. Now, you'd have a little bit of a different perspective here. Now, this space right here is Santiago Peak. When you combine it with Majestica Peak, you kind of have Saddleback Mountain in this area. So they kind of look out and have a good perspective on Saddleback Mountain and on the San Joaquin Hills. And this valley area is referred to as Saddleback Valley. So, couple other interesting things to point out before we let this one go. The Palos Verdes Peninsula. Now, we discussed earlier how the bulk of the nasty weather and storms and ocean currents are coming from the north. And so because of this Palos Verdes Peninsula, it blocks off this area here from the gnarlier storms. And so that's why we've placed the ports of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach right in this space. And to protect it from the occasional summer storms and such that come down from Mexico and the Gulf and all that, super interesting. If we zoom in down here, we're going to see this line right here? It's a little bit more pronounced when we hop into satellite view. Now, we're used to seeing jetties and such that protect boats as they come in and out of the various marinas that are here along the coast. We got Seal Beach and Huntington Harbor right here. But this is the Long Beach breakwater. See, there's a line. This is just piled up rocks way off the coast that come across. Look at these sharp lines they've created. And this will protect the port from any huge waves that are coming from the south. And there's little entrances for the boats to come. They can come in this way, they can come in through here, or they could come in through here into the ports, the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach. Pretty interesting. And lastly, let's just discuss these islands here. So if you're in Orange County and you look off the coast, you'll very clearly see Catalina Island on most days. And Catalina Island is just a great place to visit. It's got awesome opportunities for recreation, camping, hiking, staying at, bed and breakfast spots, snorkeling, diving, sailing. It's just an awesome spot. Great summer camps. Anyways, that's a cool spot to be. And we also have San Clemente Island, and that's operated by the U.S. Navy. And so you can't travel there quite the same way that you can San Clemente Island, or excuse me, Santa Catalina Island. But both of these islands are typically visible off the coast of Orange County. Sometimes you need a clear day to see it for San Clemente Island, but neither of them belong to Orange County. They are both technically a part of Los Angeles County. So hopefully that has brought some greater understanding of the geography, especially of the Orange County region. If you got any questions about this or anything you want to talk about, I would love to hear from you. You're welcome to contact me any way you see fit. You'll find my information at the end of this video and in the description of this video. My name's Antho, Mr. Hyperlocal with Hamlet, your real estate resource. It's been a total pleasure exploring this knowledge with you, and I look forward to being with you again in another video.